He used his like weight and size to almost try to intimidate me even more.
Thank goodness you didn't.
I was terrified. I called somebody to meet me in the parking lot to make sure I got to my car okay.
When you saw the news break and you saw his picture,
I immediately texted my little sister and told her to go look at the news.
What's up, Mob Crew? I'm Chris. In today's video, we're going to go over the most shocking details to come out about the Gilgo Beach homicides and Rex Heuermann. We'll be talking about the recent discovery of DNA that was found at Heuermann's home. Also, the potential victims who dated Rex and the stories that they tell, and much more in today's video. Welcome back to the channel, everybody, where we cover murder, mystery to the missing. Today's video we will be going over some of the most disturbing things that have been discovered since the arrest of Rex Heuermann. The green Chevy Avalanche. Out of the Gilgo Beach victims, Amber Costello was number 4. On September 1st, 2010, Amber had a friend who came over and witnessed not only seeing Rex Heuermann, who they described him as an ogre-like of a man, but they also witnessed his dark green Chevy Avalanche. The crazy and disturbing thing about this case is that the Chevy Avalanche was not a popular model when it comes to trucks, with sales not even cracking 6 digits across the entire United States, mixed with the fact that they stopped making them after 2013. And the average person who owned a vehicle in New York was the second lowest in the United States. The possibility of a 6+ foot owner of a dark green Chevy Avalanche in New York should have narrowed this number significantly, mixed with the fact that Rex not only owned 1 but 2 Chevy Avalanches. This means they could have caught Rex much sooner, but sadly there was corruption with the police chief at the time, who was eventually arrested. Back in the early years after they found the bodies in Long Island, that current police chief at the time was not allowing the FBI or other agencies to help search for the killer. Then on top of everything else, you have the disturbing Google image of Rex Heuermann's green Avalanche sitting outside the house on Google Maps. Potential victims coming forward. Since the arrest of Rex Heuermann on July 13th of this year, many women who had a date or interactions with Rick, like Nikki, have come forward to share their disturbing details about their dates and the conversations they had with Rex Heuermann. The common topic that was brought up by Rex during these dates was his obsession with true crime, and more specifically, the Long Island serial killer. Nikki and others described that when Rex started talking about the case, it was as if he was reliving what happened to the poor victims.
True crime fan who just knows information they've seen on TV or read. It seemed like somebody who was reliving it. One thing I remember specifically was he said to me, "How do you think they get rid of the bodies without going noticed?"
Then we started talking about serial killers, which I knew was going to happen. Like I said in the last video, I knew it was a common interest that we had. But when we started talking about serial killers, it felt like he was not so much interested in the criminal mind and the serial killers themselves, but more so into the murders. And one of the things that he said, he asked me, who's your favorite serial killer? And I can't remember what I said, but he followed up with telling me that his favorite serial killer was the duo, the Hillside Stranglers, and I think they were based out of LA. But he went on to say that the reason that the Hillside Stranglers were his favorite were because they tortured their victims before they strangled them, and he liked the close-up, intimate strangulation that took place in those murders,
and would often ask them what they thought happened in the case. This would freak out the girls, but the big thing that would freak these women out was when Rex would tell them that he lived near Gilgo Beach. The belt. One of the first things that was shared with the public was the belt they found on one of the victims.
We believe that the belt was handled by the suspect and did not belong to any of the victims.
They said in the press release that they did not believe this belt belonged to any of the victims, and it most likely came from the suspect. But after the arrest of Rex Heuermann, people took to looking up the family history of Rex and their initials, and Rex's grandfather's name was William Heuermann, W.H. And for those who may be skeptical whether this belt belonged to Rex Heuermann, during the press conference after the arrest of Rex Heuermann, someone asked about the belt and whether it belonged to Rex, and this was the answer.
I mean, he has an H in his name. He has, so it's, what was it, HM? Or WH? Yeah, so he's got an H in his name, and other relatives in his family have a W in their name. What that means, I don't know.
And so I think it's safe to assume that this belt most likely belonged to someone in the family. The girls next door. According to women who worked for Rex at his office in Midtown Manhattan, said that he would hire mainly the girl next door types working on his staff. There's an article called "The Monster, My Boss," which talks about how he surrounded himself with young women who felt like there was something off with Rex.
Was in a networking group with Heuermann. She says he actually discussed the murders with her.
He asked me, do I know about the Gilgo Beach murders? And of course I do. And he goes on to tell me, yeah, that's a serial killer that was never caught in my hometown.
She says Heuermann left her this bizarre voicemail after she quit the group because she didn't want to be around him.
Hey, this is Rex. I heard you are no longer part of the group. I still wanted to talk to you. I had a question for you. And also wanted to touch base. So if you get an opportunity, you can always try me at the office. Hope you're doing good. Hope to talk to you soon.
Also, just
one thing that is mentioned in the article is the fact that even though that they knew he was married, he never talked about his family. He would also tell disturbing stories about his hunting adventures, which he would also try to get some of the girls to come with him on these hunting adventures. And also he would go into gory details, which would make the staff feel uncomfortable. Another disturbing image found on Google Maps is that of Rex standing outside on the curb talking to a woman. Disposal of victims. During the interview with Nikki, the woman who had a date with Rex, had a conversation about the Gilgo Four where Rex was sharing his thoughts about how he believed the victims were dumped at the Gilgo Beach area undetected. Apparently, he actually shared information that was not known to the public. She begins to share that he spoke about the camel burlap that the victims were wrapped in, but one question that still hadn't been fully answered is how did he get to the location?
It's like, I couldn't tell you anything about it. I have no idea. And he said, what if they treaded through the marsh with the burlap sacks? You would never see them. He's like, it's a very dark and desolate area.
The other side of that is the ocean. We're almost called the bayside. This bayside seems to present a possible area of ingress for somebody who's looking to get to the areas where the bodies were found. If you look behind me, that copse of trees right there is approximately where the 4 bodies that are known as the Gilgo Four, the 4 that are currently in the case that's indicted, 3 of the bodies are indicted, the 4th one they expect to be indicted soon. They were there, so the question...
Did he drive there, or did he have access to a boat where he could approach the marsh at night and dispose of victims where he would not be seen? Rex Heuermann was known to be an avid duck hunter, where you could use a boat to hunt for the ducks.
5 miles that way. Police say Heuermann was an avid duck hunter who knows these waters well. A duck hunter out on a small boat would attract very little attention, even late at night.
He's a duck hunter, which means that he had both the potentially the boat that could get access to the shoreline, as well as some of the artifacts around the victim. Some of the forensics showed that they were wrapped in a camouflage burlap, which is indicative of somebody who may use that in duck hunting.
DNA. They just finished up searching the home of Rex Heuermann. They spent about a week searching the property in Massapequa Park, where they discovered a vault in the basement where Rex had well over 200 guns, with many of them not registered.
As, you know, maybe something with a wheel or something you open up, but that you don't necessarily walk into. You're talking about a safe so big a human could walk in there?
Yes, and I think that you would need something of that size given the amount of weapons he had, upwards of 283 guns.
But we also saw some disturbing items being taken from the home, like a huge doll in a case, a disturbing painting that some believe looks like a potential victim. But the biggest thing they discovered was DNA evidence at the house, which could be DNA of one or more of the victims.
Some evidence, but as far as what you've seen, what's come across your desk, what's the single biggest piece of evidence that you've come across?
I think it's a combination of a number of things, but the DNA evidence, I think, is, very powerful.
And although we don't know exactly what kind of DNA they have, it is believed that at least one victim's life was sadly taken at Rex Heuermann's home. But if they found DNA of other victims, this could be huge in getting more answers and more charges brought towards Rex. Although Rex is only being charged with 3 out of the Gilgo Four victims, it is said that they will eventually be bringing more charges to Rex via a grand jury. So let me know your thoughts about this case in the comments below. Please smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.